Mark, who's going to bring in 4 boxes to put it next to my wheelchair? Tomorrow I'll get Menachem.
Okay. You want to take them home?
No.
Oh.
Erev Tov, everyone. The Torah Shebiksav is multi-layered. By that I mean there's the Pardes, right? Pshat, Remez, Drash, Sod. So there are 4 levels immediately when we see any word in the Torah. But there are many more levels than that as well. One of the levels of understanding that the Meforshim especially deal with is why in the Torah the certain sentences or words appear when they are apparently superfluous or unnecessary to the text itself. We would understand the text very well without this additional verbiage. And that's especially true because based on Torah Shabbal Peh, all words in the Torah, so to speak, are subject to these levels of interpretation. So there's nothing in the Torah that is extra because everything has in it these levels of interpretation. So in this week's Parsha, there is a strange pasuk that the Meforshim dwell upon. The Parsha begins Vayar Balak ben Tzipor Melech Moab. Balak ben Tzipor is the king of Moab, and he sees the Jewish people in front of him, and he is frightened, and he's heard what happened to Sichon and to Og, and therefore he wants to hire Bilam as a means of, so to speak, defending himself from a threat that he thinks exists. And then there's a pasuk that says, Ubolak ben Tzipor melech lamoav ba'esahi. Balak ben Tzipor was the king of Moab ba'esahi at that time. So again, if we look at it, that's completely superfluous. We know that Balak was the king. So what does the Torah come to indicate and come to teach us by the addition of this pasuk that Balak ben Tzipor melech Moab ba'esahi? And it certainly has to be ba'esahi. I mean, it's if he was the king 100 years earlier, he wouldn't be faced with the problem. And if he was the king 100 years later, he wouldn't be faced with the problem. So the problems are always ba'esahi. So the Meforshim, when they looked at this, they basically said as follows. The leaders in government always face choices and problems. That's the nature of the situation. There's nobody that's a leader in a generation that does not have problems. Now, there are problems and problems, but every leader faces issues that have to be solved. And the question is, how do they go about to solve it? So there's a concept that we see already in Megillat Esther that Mordechai told her, Umi Yodeya im Leis Kozo Higat Lamalchut. Maybe this is the reason that you're the queen. This is the moment. So to speak, this is the Beit Tahi. This is the moment that you're here for. You weren't the queen before, and you're not going to be the queen later. You're the queen now for this particular moment when, so to speak, the fate of the Jewish people is in your hands. And therefore, the test of leadership is, what are you going to do about it? So Bullock is faced with that too. Bullock is the king, Beit Ahi, in this moment when the Jewish people are there to confront him. Now, Bullock is descended from Lot. Bullock, to a certain extent, is an ancestor of ours, because out of Bullock will come Ruth, and out of Ruth will come David HaMelech. So how does he see himself? What does he think that he's the king Beit Ahi at this moment, the first major confrontation of Moab with Klal Yisrael? So he can do it one way or he can do it another way. He can call up Moshe Rabbeinu and say, let's talk it over. He can hear from Moshe that Moab is protected because of Lot. Instead, he chooses to curse the Jewish people, to hire Bilam and to bring him to say nasty things about the Jewish people, and then later to seduce the Jewish people. All because of the fact that he misreads why he was chosen for the moment. He was chosen for the moment because he could have done good things. That's what Chazal mean when they say, so we interpret that literally to mean that, so to speak, the freedom of choice of kings and political leaders is limited. So the Rishonim say that doesn't apply to Jewish kings, the Jewish leaders, it's Lumas Olam. But there are many who say that that's not how you should understand it. Lev Melachim Basarim, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave in the hands of leaders, of kings, of officers, of people in power, the power to do good. That's B'yad Hashem. But because everybody has freedom of choice, so then they are responsible for whatever actions they take. Because if we don't interpret it that way, then everything is fatalistic. Then, what do you want from Stalin? What do you want from Hitler? What do you want from anybody? They have no choice. The answer is they do have a choice. That's the Yad Hashem. God gives them the choice, gives them the opportunity to do good. What they do with it, so it's always in life. Life is opportunities. what people do with those opportunities is up to them. In effect, that is what we are judged upon that. We say on Yom Adin, B'chosam yad kol odam bo, everybody signs his page. What does that mean? That means that everybody makes the decision regarding the opportunities that are presented to him or to her. Based on those decisions, that's what the page looks like. So when the Torah said, Balak ben Sipor melech l'molav v'esahi, the Torah is teaching us that here's an opportunity for Balak. Now it's interesting to note, there are other parshas in the Torah that are called on the name of a person. Noach, Yitro, Pinchas. Those parshas are called on the name of people, but those parshas are called on the name of people who are positive people. Balak is the only one that has a parsha that's called on his name, but it's a negative thing. So again, that's that idea. Balak signs off on this parsha. He can be whatever he wants. He could be Pinchas. He could be Noach. He's Tzadik, Tomi Moya B'darosa. He could be Yitro, that was Megayer. What he chooses to be is his decision. And the Torah wants to emphasize that. And therefore the Pasuk says, Balak ben Tzipor, Melech l'Moav b'Eitahi. Balak ben Tzipor was the king at that time. It was up to him. He could have done what he wanted to do. He could have done good. The Gaon of Vilna says that and the judgment of people, so we call it din v'cheshbon. In modern day Hebrew, that became a duach, which is a report, or it's a traffic ticket, or whatever, however we use it. But what is din v'cheshbon? What's the difference? There are no synonyms in Hebrew, the Gaon says. So din, he says, judgment is what a person does. What a person actually does or says. Cheshbon is what he could have done. The potential of what could have been. So on that also there's a reckoning. People say, 20 years ago, I could have bought all the Rechavia, right? That's a cheshbon. So we are responsible not only for what has been done or is done, but for what potential could have been done too. And Chazal wanted to emphasize that. So Balak was the king then. He could have done whatever he wanted to do. You didn't have to hire Bilam. You didn't have to persist on this road. You have the potential. A parsha is named after him. But he made his own choices. And that's a lesson throughout history and throughout the lives of people. We all know that. We are all subject to the choices that we've made. And therefore, the Torah wants us to understand that. So the Pasuk is not extraneous. The Pasuk merely comes to emphasize what we know, that Balak could have been whatever he wanted to be. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Rotza Kodesh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael V'ficha Chirba Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar Adonai Chafetz Aman Tzidko Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.